Hello all, and welcome to the Indie Ocean. This is One Finger Death Punch on Xbox Live Indie Games. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on the reputation of Silver Dollar Games, the developer of One Finger Death Punch. Some of you may be familiar with them, and the popular, although not universal, perception is that they have a habit of very hastily throwing together slapdash semi-games, some that are not actually games at all, and then offloading them onto Xbox Live Indie Games in droves, ridiculous numbers of games, to the extent where they've actually exceeded their release rate that's allowed on their account, and they've had to create at least 3 accounts, I believe. Anyway, so they don't have the best reputation. They're known basically for tipping lorry loads of shovelware into Xbox Live Indie Games, which doesn't do many favours for a service that's already afflicted with a shaky reputation. But some of us, myself included, have held the suspicion for a while that Silver Dollar Games do actually have the chops to make a proper game, and for some reason they were choosing not to bother. Well, One Finger Death Punch is not the One Finger Death Punch to quality that I expected it might be. It is in fact a game. That's right, Silver Dollar Games have not only released an actual game, but one that is genuinely fun. And like a lot of the classic games, not that I'm saying this is necessarily a classic, but like a lot of classic games, it's a very simple concept that's used very, very well to just create fun. So let's get stuck in. Hello, Diamond281. You know, I've never actually played with you and I can't even remember who you are. Sorry about that. So anyway, we have play. As you might guess from the iconography here, it's a stickman martial arts game. But we have play. Mastery is basically just your total in-game score. High scores is, league table. And music on or off. So play is really the option here. So you go in and you have 2 modes. Survival is what you'd expect. See how long you can survive against ever-encroaching enemies. And levels is basically a series of shorter challenges. I haven't unlocked any of the higher difficulty levels yet because I haven't been playing it all that long. But long enough to know that I'm having fun with it. So we're going to student here. I'll start a bit on the, let's say, the second level here, just to show you the way the basic mechanics work, and then we'll do something a bit more later on. So, this only uses 2 buttons, X to attack left and B to attack right. And you can't move, you just have to wait for enemies to wander into your attack zones here before you can attack them. Very basic concept. And when I first uncovered this idea, I thought, it's a button matching game with only 2 buttons. That is going to be incredibly tedious. But it's actually surprisingly not, and we'll hopefully see why as I progress a little bit here. All throwing weapons kill enemies in 1 hit. I'm not entirely convinced by the slightly Banzai-esque, hammy, Chinesey accent here. I suppose Banzai was being Japanese, but you know what I mean. Sort of hammy, faux generic Oriental. Anyway, I'm not convinced by that, but we can let that slide. So anyway, that's the basic mechanic there. But as you progress, you get more and more stuff going on, because you don't simply press X and B to attack left and right as enemies walk onto the screen like you do in these early levels. For a start, you'll notice at the bottom it says Y, choose skills. That's because on certain levels, you actually unlock skills, which affect the way you play, even when you revisit earlier levels, like this one. Every bow comes with 2 additional arrows. Every dagger comes with 2 additional daggers. And then we have these other things. Your next attack will freeze enemies on one side. And so on. But you only activate that after 27 kills. So you actually have these unlockable skills that will modify the way you play. And although it is a very simple, straightforward concept, there's a surprising amount of strategy to it, as we might see in a minute. And for those of you who are compulsive unlockers of all the things in the game, this should give you something to aim for. So anyway, I have these 2 equipped. I think you can equip 3 at any one time, judging by this meter on the right. Now let's get back to it. We'll move further down. Here's a novelty lightsaber round. which is basically just you hacking at people with a lightsaber. I'll show you a little bit of that. definitely a lightsaber. And this reminds me a little bit of the Burly Brawl, seen in the second Matrix film where Neo is fighting 100 Agent Smiths. Because you're just hacking through these legions of sprinting enemies. So here's one thing. When you've scored a load of kills in a row, sometimes you get a sort of bonus that actually extends your attack zone, so that you don't have to worry about waiting for people to stray into it when they get close to you. So anyway, we'll head back to the map. And here's a boss fight. More on that in a second. Okay, so let's do, say, this one here. Where you'll actually see... You might see the ball, for a start. You get weapons. Enemies sometimes drop weapons when you've killed them. And you can actually pick up those weapons by pressing the button for the appropriate attack zone. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of things going on here. You get different enemy types. The blue ones will dodge your first attack. So you have to attack them and then immediately attack in the opposite direction because they will have dodged past you at that point. Like this. Yeah! Oh man, that's gruesome. And every now and then you'll get sort of stronger enemies that you have to duel. Okay, here's the ball. When that's in your attack zone, you press the appropriate button and you will sort of smack the ball across the screen. Similarly, you can grab weapons off enemies, or that enemies have dropped, by pressing the button while the weapon is in the appropriate attack zone, and then you can use that to further attack your enemies. And you get these little sort of mini-boss characters, where you get, like this, you have to press the appropriate buttons as they scroll down the screen in a traditional button-matching fashion. And that's the way One Finger Death Punch manages to keep things interesting. Oh, I was actually defeated. It's because I'm talking. That's the way this game manages to keep things interesting. Every time you've nailed down the basics, it throws in something new. And even when it's things that you've encountered before, it keeps changing them up. It'll throw in one of those mini-boss duels, and then an enemy that dodges you, and then something else, an enemy with a weapon, and then that ball thing that you have to knock at your enemies. And it just keeps throwing things in, constantly changing it up like this. Add to that the fact that you can actually unlock skills as you go along, and these bonuses that extend your attack ranges, and who knows what else that I haven't got to yet later in the game. And you start to see that One Finger Death Punch is, as I said, a very simple, accessible concept, from which the developer manages to get everything that they could possibly get by using it in imaginative ways. And that just confirms that for all the, frankly, crap that they've released in the past and are notorious for releasing, Silver Dollar Games do have what it takes to develop a fun, slick, well-created, well-designed game that's actually enjoyable for sustained periods of time. I also want to quickly show you the boss fight. I've only had this one so far, but it's basically a one-on-one duel with an enemy who switches between the properties of different enemy types. So sometimes he's this dodging guy who will dodge your first attack each time, and then suddenly he'll become this green guy who behaves differently again. Let's take that weapon. No, that's not a weapon. My mistake. Yeah, so I'm still very early in this game. I'm sure there's a lot I haven't seen yet and a lot for me still to learn about it. But my astonishment at actually enjoying this game, and the fact that it is genuinely good and worth recommending, made me crank out a video spontaneously at short notice. So anyway, this has been One Finger Death Punch. I think I've showed you enough already for you to have some idea of whether you want to at least try it out. Like all Xbox Live indie games, there is a free trial available for download. I'll put the link below. And this is 80 Microsoft points, so about 60p in UK currency, or $1 in US currency. So it costs absolutely nothing to all intents and purposes. And although it's not going to be an epic RPG that lasts you for 50 hours, it is actually a fun, accessible, genuinely enjoyable game that picks up the qualities of the games of yore, things like Tetris, and manages to infuse them with something a little bit newer. That sounds incredibly pretentious now it's coming out of my mouth, but hopefully you know what I mean. It's a simple idea that is used in a variety of ways that manage to keep it alive and engaging for longer than you'd expect. So anyway, One Silver Death Punch. I applaud Silver Dollar Games for not only breaking their duck with the quality of their games, but actually putting something out there that rivals the better games on the service. So feel free to give this a look if it seems like something that might be up your street. Anyway, thanks for watching as usual. Rejoin me the next time when I cover more games. Bye for now. Also, is it just me, or is that the music from Requiem for a Dream?